Awesome. So what you
Awesome.
got going on?
Not much right now, just enjoying life outside right now. So can't complain. Um, right now I'm just working every day and trying to make this real estate thing work.
So where are you at? What are you working on in real estate?
Now, I'm doing a little bit of wholesaling, mostly direct to agent.
Uh,
So so I'm just working with agents, having them send me deals, trying to get them to send me off market deals if possible, just building relationships with them. Just making calls and building relationships with agents. That's the biggest thing I'm doing right now.
so you said you were doing direct to seller?
Yeah, I've done direct to seller before, and that transitioned over to direct to agent. Um, they both have their pros and cons. I like working with agents a little better than working direct to seller because then I know, if they're already talking to an agent, they are motivated to sell, right?
Hmm.
They want to sell. I don't have to worry about people who don't want to sell. I know there's motivation there. Whether it's the right fit for me or not, that's to be determined.
Right.
And also, I can just tell the agent exactly what I'm looking for, and they'll bring me properties, you know, in the category that I'm looking for. So I don't have to sift through all of these different people. I can just tell agents, hey, this is what I want. Bring me this when you get it.
Hmm.
And I get random texts saying, hey, I have this opportunity. What do you think about this? And then I start looking at it. So
So
that's kind of why I like agent outreach more than direct to seller, but both are great models. Obviously, there's successful people doing both.
right, yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it takes a lot of that extra guesswork out. Um, so you can almost, it's not automated, but it kind of is when agents are just texting you deals after, you've built that relationship with them. You don't really have to go out and search for them. You built that relationship, so they're going to keep coming back to you because they know you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the biggest part. It does take a long time to kind of build that relationship with the agent and enough agents to where you're getting enough deals um, sent to you from these agents. You probably need a good 15, in between 15 and 30 agents that are on board with you and have that relationship, and you are their guy that they're looking for deals to
Hmm.
send to them, right? And building that relationship is hard. The easiest way to do it is to close a deal with them, right? That's the best way to do it is to
Yep.
actually
Proof
close
of
a deal with them,
concept.
right? Proof of concept. Okay, these guys are legit. We closed a deal. I got paid. I'm the agent. I'm thinking, okay, I got paid, and we did this. Let's do it again, right? So that's the easiest way. But you can still build relationships with agents that you haven't closed the deals with, right? Because maybe it wasn't the right fit for you, and they understand that too.
Hmm. Okay. So how did you what was the experience like, the shift from being direct to seller to, like, how did you start contacting agents? Did you just find a listing on, like, Zillow or Redfin, or how did you do that?
Yeah. So actually, so I'm part of a team, a wholesale team. I started out just being a lead manager for direct to seller. I'd call uh, the sellers and try to get them on a contract, try to close them,
Hmm.
find their motivation and get the four pillars, everything that we're taught to do direct to seller. Uh,
So what are the four pillars again?
so yeah, so you want to find out, you know, their timeline.
Hmm.
You want to find out the condition of their house. You want to find out the price and their why, right? Why are
Right.
they
Yeah.
selling? And so by doing all of that, then you can figure, once you have all that information, you can figure out, is it a good fit? Um, are they qualified for what we're trying to do? Once you do that, then you put them on a follow up, and you keep following up. You get more and more information. You keep digging into motivation, and eventually, with your consistency, um, if they are an actual motivated seller, they're going to sell you your property.
Right.
And so then you go, you go into that, you send them the contract, and then that's when the transaction starts, and then hopefully you close and find a buyer. That's
Best case scenario.
best case scenario, right? And it doesn't always work out that way. There's many things that can happen, from when you actually get a seller under contract to closing, and
Hmm.
that's the part that people don't talk about too often. It's like, oh, we got to get contracts, get people under contract, get people under contract. But there's a whole month usually, or sometimes 45 days, where you have all these different moving parts. You have a title company that's involved. If you're wholesaling a deal, you need to find a buyer if you don't already have a buyer lined up, which is usually the
Hmm.
case. You don't normally have a buyer already lined up. So you've got to go out and market to find a buyer. Um, the seller sometimes doesn't disclose everything, right? So you get through your inspection period, and come to find out, it's a lot worse than what they told you over the phone.
Right.
And so then you need to go renegotiate, because instead of a $30,000 renovation, maybe it's a $45,000 renovation, right? So
Hmm.
all of that being said, then now you got to go back and renegotiate with the seller, and sometimes that can kill a deal.
Oh,
Some
absolutely.
sometimes they come back and like, oh, absolutely not. My lowest is what we already agreed upon, um, and then unfortunately you've got to cancel the contract. Or sometimes buyers will back out, right? After a while, they'll be like, you know what, the just doesn't add up for me, and then they back out.
Hmm.
Or actually, we had a situation last month. This is a crazy situation where it was a probate um, situation. There was three heirs. All right, they put the property on hold because of a bond, because one of the children got charged, and he had a court date. So they had to put up collateral. They put up the house. So instead of closing in July, we had to push it all the way. We had to push it past August, because his court date was August 1st.
Hmm.
The buyer was getting very antsy. He was like, okay, what's going on? The agent wasn't communicating with us. So I mean, things like that can happen all the time. That's the real
Yeah.
world.
That's just life
It's not.
happening.
This is what's happening. There's no like. I think I've had one like perfect transaction where everything went smoothly and there was
Uh-huh.
no hiccups. Just one.
Oh man.
It was actually my first deal, which is funny. It was my first deal ever, and it was just local here in Virginia. I talked to this guy, got his house under contract. He knew it was a fixer upper, and he just wanted to get rid of it. He wants some money for his uh his daughter for college. So I got under contract for 100,000, and found someone to JV with. They had the buyer, went to title, everything was smooth, closed on time, no problems whatsoever. Every other deal I've ever done, there's been something. There's been something. So
You probably went into that next one like, all right, this is gonna be easy, and then there was a hiccup, and you were like, come
oh
on, guys.
everyone after that, I'm like, after the second one happened, whatever it was happened, and then boom, third one, something else happened. I'm like, oh, is this going to be every time? I thought it was going to be like the first one, but no, the first one was the exception, and everyone after that, that's the rule. So you know, you have to be prepared for, just because you get in a contract doesn't mean it's going to close.
I definitely I feel like if once I actually get a property under contract, I would really love to pass that off to a TC, a transaction coordinator, and just kind of wash my hands of it.
Absolutely, yeah, and yeah, TCs are very important. I know, of course, when you start out, you're pretty much doing everything yourself. But even starting out, I would say, man, people use a TC. If you're going to get an assignment anyway, use that assignment to pay the TC. A lot of them will do that. If it doesn't close, they'll give you a credit for the next transaction. So you just got to find the right people, connect with good TCs, and let them take care of the paperwork and the title company and the headache. Let them get it closed.
So at what point, I mean, from my understanding, you would negotiate with the seller, and then would you write up the contract, or would you have the TC do all that? You give the TC everything you discussed with the seller, and then they do it.
Yeah, so when I first started out, I did everything. I did everything myself. First couple deals. Then I joined a team, and they had a transaction coordinator on the team. So all I would do is once I got a verbal agreement with the seller, I would contact the TC. I would say, hey, we agreed on this price. This is the closing day. This is the EMD. This is like all the different details. I would send it to them in our group text, and they would write up the contract
Hmm.
and send it out to them. Right.
Okay.
And then I would do a pass off with the TC. I would say, hey, this is our transaction coordinator. He's going to be taking care of you for the rest of this. He's going to contact the title company. He's going to open up escrow. And if you have any questions, you can contact him. This is his email, and we would do a three-way. He'd be on the phone, introduce himself, and we'd do a pass off just like that. So you can do that with outside TCs. If you don't have an in-house TC, if you're going to somebody else, you can do the same thing. But it needs to be it needs to be verbally agreed, because the TC is not going to negotiate or renegotiate. So if the
Right.
seller, for whatever reason, comes back and says there's a problem with the paperwork, um, then you are going to have to go back and renegotiate with them.
Hmm.
The TC doesn't do any negotiating for you. They just purely do the paperwork and make sure the transaction gets across the finish line, and they're also not going to find a buyer for you. So same thing, you have to do any negotiation with the buyer, set up the inspections and all of that with the buyer as well. So TCs do not
Really?
do that. Yes,
I didn't know
correct.
that. I actually thought, once you pass it off to a TC, then they would, pretty much dispo the deal for you, find a buyer and get all that done on their end. Um, I didn't realize that you still had to take care of that portion, so that's good to know.
Yeah. So some TCs do have buyers, and they do have buyers lists, and but then it turns into a TC fee. It turns into a JV fee instead. It kind
Right.
of right if they bring the buyer. Um, but most of the time, you've got to have both. The TC is just there for the paperwork.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So when it comes to wholesaling deals with the TC, how are you determining your fee on the deal and then their fee? Are you just going like a percentage base or?
So the TC is a flat fee, depending on them. Sometimes it's all up front. A more experienced one will be all up front. Some will do half up front, half when it closes, and then some will do only when it closes they get paid. Right. So you just have to talk to the TC and figure out how they do their payment structure. Um, Normally it's between $800 to $1,500 per
Mhm.
transaction. Uh, Creative transactions are usually more, and then the more experienced of a transaction coordinator they are, the more they charge. Um,
Absolutely.
some of them do almost like a subscription based service where I don't know, they'll say, okay, let's do $3,000 a month or whatever it is, and they'll do all of your transactions for you. So if you're doing five, you know, to 10 transactions a month, instead of paying 800, $1,000 a month, maybe you pay like $4,000,
Right.
and you'll get your all 10 transactions done by them. So that's another way that they structure the payments as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's very helpful information because I wouldn't have figured that out until I was right there and been like, hey, can you work this for me? And they'd be like, what? Can you do this, this, and this? Oh, no. So awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, but yeah, and then I guess from there, um, I know after I did direct to seller, I know we kind of got off into a TC
Right.
conversation, uh, but that's all good. After I ended up I did direct to seller for oh 4 months or so, and
Uh-huh.
then I transitioned to the on market team because they were expanding and they want to do agent outreach, and so I kind of volunteered myself as, hey, let me kind of take control of the agent outreach. Let me go work that and see how that goes.
Hmm.
And so then I started reaching out to agents. I started talking to them and realized I sort of like this a little better than direct to seller. It's it's kind of more in my realm. I think my personality is more fit for direct to agent rather than direct to seller. I could do both, but I do prefer agents.
How is your personality more fit for agents?
I'm pretty direct, um,
Hmm.
and so you can be very direct with an agent. Sometimes with a seller, you have to you. I don't want to say, well, not direct. Sometimes you can't really be direct. You have to. There's a certain way you have to go about talking to direct to the seller.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, you don't necessarily want to ask them, "Hey, why are you selling?" Right? You don't want to be direct. I can I can just go up to an agent and be like, "So, why are these guys selling? Are they moving to a different state? Are they doing this or that?" A lot of times when you ask directly to the seller, "Hey, why are you selling?" They almost kind of contract back and they're like, why is this guy asking me this? He doesn't need to know this information, right? It'll do the opposite effect. It'll get you farther away from what you're trying to find out, and that is their motivation,
Hmm.
right? Um, but with an agent, I can just be like, hey, what's going on? What's the situation? And most of the time, they'll tell you.
Right. Yeah, I've definitely found with sellers, asking sellers, they'll give you a very surface definition of what's going on, but it's really up
Absolutely.
to you to dive deeper and ask those good questions that are going to get you closer to their real motivation.
Exactly. You have to kind of go around, right? You gotta go around to the side door. You can't go through the front door, you know.
Yep.
And with an agent, sometimes you have to do the same thing with agents because they're like, oh, that information doesn't matter, right? My client wants to sell, and that's all you need to know. And then you go, okay, well, hey, I'm just trying to, figure out if there's other options rather than just a straight cash deal here. And
Hmm.
then they might get curious about that, and oh yeah, we buy houses in different ways. And then you tell them a third party story. Yeah, we helped this guy. He bought his house, the year before. Unfortunately, he got cancer and had to move in with his family. So he had absolutely no equity in his house. And it sat on the market for about 6 months. The agent couldn't sell it until I came along and I was explaining to the agent, hey, we have this thing called subject to. We can take over his existing mortgage. Doesn't matter about the equity. We'll just take that over and we'll pay for the closing costs
Right.
and your commission. There's going to be $0 out of your your client's pocket
Hmm.
at the end of the day. And so you tell that third party story and explain to them, hey, this is how we help somebody in this situation. There's this situation. You can tell them like three or four different situations of how you've helped sellers, and that's how you get them on board with, you know, that's how you build a relationship, and that's also how you get them on board with creative finance because they
Right.
see, oh, this is helpful. This isn't some scam because where people go wrong in explaining creative finance is like, oh, they get into all the technical stuff. Oh, we can do this and this and this, and people want to hear a story, right? People want to hear how it's helpful because most agents have no idea what subject to is,
Hmm.
right? You would think a real estate professional would know what subject to is, but in reality, most agents don't know.
Yeah, I hear that on podcasts a lot that, you bring up subject to, and they're like, what is that? Is that illegal? What? I don't understand. So there's a lot of it's becoming a little more known, but there's definitely a lot of agents who could benefit from the knowledge of subject twos.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it is just um, teaching agents about creative finance, right? At a very basic level.
Right.
We're not going in Pace Morby and showing them how to do all these crazy things. We're at, at a very basic level, we're saying, hey, this is how it helped. This is how it has helped people in these different situations. And you give them a personal story. And by giving them a personal story, it connects them to you better.
Now, starting out, did you have stories from other people that you used, or did you just come up with something?
Starting out, I didn't even use third party stories. I didn't even know what third party stories were first starting out, until I went through enough training and watched enough closers utilize those third party stories and how important they are. Just showing up to the
Hmm.
daily dial, right? Showing
Yeah.
up to the daily dial, working with my team and doing training with them and learning and getting feedback. Um, but yeah, until I had my own third party stories, I would just use other people's, right? From the team. So I can say we, right? So I'm not lying to them because I'm saying
Right.
we.
You
I'm
were
saying
in. You
our
were
team,
there.
right? I'm saying our team has done this, and this, right?
Hmm.
I'm not making up a story saying that I did something that I didn't. I just say, hey, we have done this before, which is true. I
Yep.
personally haven't done it at that point, but that's okay, right? You have to start somewhere.
Yeah, because that's definitely what I hear a lot about is you'll see on YouTube or some of the sub two zooms is that they want you to memorize a third party story because yes, people love stories, but for me, if I haven't actually experienced it, I'm going to be so sloppy on the details no matter what because it's not me, it's someone else, and I can't give a story based on something that I have personally not experienced.
Right. And it kind of goes back to my point. And that's why when I first started out, I said we. I used my team's experience to tell that third party story of how we have helped somebody. But now
Hmm.
I can say this is how I have helped somebody
Right.
utilizing creative finance, whether it's seller finance or subject to or a hybrid or whatever the case. I can still use we or I can use I. But most of the time I just say we.
That makes sense. Yeah. So when it comes to like when you have a deal, do you have your own underwriter or who takes care of that?
Yeah, so we do have our own underwriter. We have our own dispo TC. We have literally everything that you need. So when I when I'm talking to somebody and I'm getting to a point where I need to give them an offer,
Hmm.
then we just send it out saying, hey, this seller needs an offer. What is the price? What is our MAR, our max allowable offer? Usually that comes in the same day. Sometimes it'll be the next day. Then next time when you get that person on a follow up, you present the offer to them, and then you see how they react. If it's a cash offer and they go, oh, absolutely not, that's way too low. Then you go, okay, well, that's when you present terms to them.
You're positioning yourself with your cash offer that they're probably going to refuse to, get you set up for to negotiate terms.
In most cases, yes. And you always want to use cash to begin with because cash is the easiest way to go. Everybody understands cash. There's no nuances to it. That's the price. It closes on this date, and the end. Right? There's nothing fancy about it. But then once you start getting to creative finance, there's a lot more detail that's involved. There's a lot more explaining, especially if you have an
Hmm.
agent involved. You have to explain that to the agent. That agent has to then explain it to their client. Um, unless in some cases, what I've been able to do is get the client and the agent on the phone at the same time during a three-way, and then I will explain everything from there.
Right.
Uh, that is the best way to do it because allowing an agent to go back to their seller and it's hard to gauge what they told the seller,
It's
right?
like the that old game of what is it?
It's a telephone.
Telephone. You know,
Yeah,
you got 10 people, someone says, okay, the sky is blue, and by the fifth person, someone says the sky is red. And so now
exactly.
that completely changes everything you just worked on.
Yeah, and it's not that they're trying to misrepresent what you're saying, but they might not have the understanding of creative finance like you do.
Right.
Right? This might be their first creative transaction ever. In most cases, a lot of the agents I've worked with, it is the first creative transaction that they've ever done, and so
Hmm.
they don't understand everything. So if you're relying on somebody who doesn't understand all the details, and then their seller is asking them, whatever detail that they don't know, they're not going to be able to answer it, or they're going to make something up that might not be true, and that could turn the seller off from doing that deal because they didn't fully understand it. So absolutely 100% the best way is to get on a three-way call with the seller and the agent. That is how I've done the most deals creatively. It's just get them on the phone.
Gotcha. All right. So what's been your biggest problem in getting some of these deals closed?
I think the biggest problem is people don't want to take a small down payment, right? They want cash. They want
Yep.
cash. They want the today money. Most people don't think about tomorrow money,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm selling my house. I need it. I need at least this much right now. Um, or I have an agent who's like, you need to put 20% down because, um, that's what the banks do, and it's too risky, and
Hmm.
and they think it's too risky because they just don't understand.
Right.
So then you're you're fighting with an agent, plus you're fighting with a seller who doesn't necessarily want to take only $20,000 down for their $400,000 house,
Hmm.
right? They want to walk away with more money, and then you have an agent whispering in their ear, I think you should do 20% down, right? And of course, for us at 20% down, it just doesn't make sense because why wouldn't I just go to a bank at that point?
Right. Right.
And that's exactly what I tell agents. If I was to go 20% down, why wouldn't I just go to a bank? You know,
Yep. Yeah. We're trying to avoid that whole process here
exactly. If
by
if if I go to the bank, right, to pay off their loan that they went to a bank for, nobody wins there.
yeah, who's
Only the
really
banks win.
getting the money here?
Only the banks win in that scenario. So, let's come to an agreement that makes sense for us, and we don't have to use the banks.
Right. Yeah.
And so
So when
in most cases, oh sorry,
no,
in
you're
most
good.
cases, yeah, in most cases we just offer more money, right? More than their asking price. So let's say it was $400,000. Well, like, okay, uh, let's say they're okay with a 7-year balloon, right? They're like, okay, I'm okay with 7 years.
Hmm.
We'll do like 450,000. We'll do and explain to them, yeah, you're going to make money over the long run, right? Over the 7 years, you're going to make 50 more $1,000 than you would right now.
Right.
And a lot of times that's what gets them to move. Um, Raising the asking price is a big one to get over that.
Yeah. So that definitely does make sense. Yeah. I have a seller that I was talking to that I randomly called off of Zillow, and he's got a house at asking price, but he wants cash. So I was thinking about, how I could work that to maybe twist him to not really twist, because you can't really convince someone if they really don't want to do it, but
Right,
how,
exactly.
how to persuade them maybe to consider um, a more creative option.
I think it sounds like you need to dig into their motivation a little more. Like why do they need all the cash now? What is their goal? What are they trying to accomplish?
Right. They have some now this is very surface level again because very bad at asking questions. But him and his brother, it's their childhood home, and they're looking to they really just they want a good price for it, and they want to do some of their own renovations. They're a bit older, so they're like, we don't really need these long drawn out payments. But at the same time, the way I see it is, they still come by and take such good care of the property that I can see they have a very high emotional attachment to it. So it's going to be like working around that and seeing what we can do for each other.
Yeah, I mean, a possibility is an ovation agreement, right? And how I explain that to sellers is, hey, we're not going to buy your house. Instead, we're going to partner with you. We're going to come in and do the renovations, and then we're going to resell it for a higher amount on the market, right? So let's say the cash price, the most you could pay for it was 200,000. Um, doing an ovation, you're able to come up on the price a little better. So it you can maybe do like 330,000 or 340,000, right? I mean, sorry, 230 or 240,000 instead
Hmm.
of that 200,000, and maybe that moves the needle for them, right? If you guys were close on price.
Right. Well, the big thing is that they're the house is in good condition. It really just needs cosmetic remodeling on the inside, and they're already at the ARV, the after repair value. So there's not much room to build more value into the property at that price.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, you can just say, hey, look, I'm not your buyer for cash at that price. Maybe you should talk to a real estate agent and list your property. And you could get that much. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But then you have to think about, okay, they're going to take a 6% commission. There's closing costs. The sellers might request you to repair some of the things, right? So you have to kind of go through all that with
Hmm.
them and push away a little bit, right? And you say, but I would be your buyer on terms. If we're able to do this instead of 300,000, what you're asking, hey, maybe we do a 5 or 7 or 10 year deal, and we give you 350 or three, we give whatever, however much it is, add more money to it and
Right.
structure the deal that way, right? See if they bite on that. See if they're interested in that.
Yeah, and that's good because you mentioned, saying, would you list it with an agent? And that's what I've started doing. And a lot of all my seller calls is they do want to sell. Have you done this, 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 and this? Okay, now here's my solution.
Right.
Because at that point, it makes you sound like more of a consultant and that you're not just trying to upsell them on a deal.
Right. You just like, I think, I mean, many people say it all the time, provide value to them. Even if you're not going to close on the deal, if you just provide value to people, sometimes that can change their mind, right?
Hmm.
It can go to, oh, this guy's not a salesman. He's just trying to help me out, right?
Right.
Especially when you do that push away, that actually brings them closer to you in most cases.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. The other thing that kind of gets me is where you would bring, like how you would fund the balloon. I know it would be private money, but the inner workings of how that all actually is going to play out when you have to pay off that balloon in X amount of time.
yeah, so it's not necessarily private money. You could use your own money to fund it, um, or you just refinance the property with a traditional bank.
Hmm.
That's a possibility too, because maybe in 5 or 7 years the interest rates are back down to 3%. Who knows? We have no idea.
Hopefully.
Maybe they're 16%, right? We don't know. But an option is just doing a traditional refinance with a bank.
Hmm.
Uh, that's one option. Or you could use private money. You could sell it to somebody else, right? You could just sell the property. That's another option.
Yeah,
Instead of
list
keeping
it with an agent and actually have someone
list it with an
sign up.
agent, sell it to another buyer off market.
Hmm.
right? Who knows? I mean, you would hope that in those 7 to 10 years or whatever, that the market continues to grow and that
Right.
you can actually sell it and make a profit, right? So there's a couple different options there: refinance, sell the property, or private money lender.
Okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, because that's where I'm kind of stuck at. Also, the fact that I have no idea about underwriting. So there's that I have to work on, or I should just go find somebody in the community who can help me underwrite these deals.
So the great part about this community is Pace has an underwriting Zoom.
Oh yeah,
So
I've been there.
so you can get your deals underwritten for free, and you can see how they're underwritten, right?
Hmm.
You can get there's classes that you can take to show you how to underwrite deals, so that way you can practice. Or
Right.
you can just find, I mean, what you could do is if you have something, you can underwrite it and then you can send it to somebody else. Like you can send it to me, I can look it over and tell you, hey, it's probably this is what I'm seeing out of it.
Hmm.
And you kind of go back and forth, and it can be a learning experience.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you can just find someone else in the community who knows how to underwrite.
Yeah, because I it's the course doesn't come at a great time for me to actually attend. But I did, actually start the learning process for it. And so they have a uh, spreadsheet in there that you can use to underwrite all these deals. And that's probably going to be like my main focus this weekend is to get in there and play around with the numbers and see what I can really do. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but other than that,
Absolutely.
I've been not too much on cash deals, obviously. But if it's like a creative deal, I go pull up some mortgage calculator and back of the napkin math here.
Well, hey, at least you're trying to get better at that.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people who just sit around and they don't try to improve themselves.
Right. Oh, well, it
So
looks
that
like we've got less than a minute left. So,
well, it was definitely a pleasure, um, and I'm glad we could go over everything. You've been a great interviewer, so thank you.
well, thank you. Yeah, I look forward to working with you in the future. You gave some really good insights today.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. You enjoy the rest of your day. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
See you.